Second 2020 Community Preservation Committee meeting. We're conducting the meeting via Zoom. The public is obviously welcome to attend and has the technical ability to do so. Questions from the public can be addressed to the committee through email sent to Amy Landau, and who is the project manager for the committee, and her email address is landaua@holyoke.org. So that's landaua@holyoke.org. So with that, welcome everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. We might as well dive right into the agenda, which is hefty. I don't know whether it'll be lengthy or not. Yeah, we'll see how the conversations go. We had as a first agenda item a review of minutes, and I believe we have the December 9th, 2019 minutes and the February 19th, 2020 minutes. But I believe we dealt with the December 9th, 2019 minutes already in our last meeting. Is that right? Is that the recollection of other members of the committee? I reviewed the video of our last meeting. I'm pretty sure we did. We did 2 minutes, 2 meeting minutes.
I don't think so, but Meg would know.
So at the January 22nd meeting, which I think was the last one, we approved the January 15th minutes without changes and tabled approval of the December 9th meeting minutes.
Well, then we met again on February 19th, right? Well, in any case, and so we don't have minutes from February 19th yet, correct? And I don't have, if there's a December 19th minutes, I don't
You're
have.
right. So at the February 19th meeting, we did approve the December 9th minutes and we approved the January 22nd minutes. So the only minutes we haven't approved now are the the February 19th minutes.
Right. So, and we don't have those, correct?
My apologies. I certainly thought that you did. I can send it back out to Gmail, and I can also post it on the Google folder that we have, and we can look at it next meeting.
Okay, so we'll table that then.
And if you can, Meg, if you can send me the 12-9 minutes again, because I couldn't find them on our the public Google Docs folder. I don't know why. So
okay.
So all right. Does someone mind make a motion to table the February 19th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Sorry, who initiated that? I didn't hear it.
Michael.
Mr. Falsetti.
Thank you.
We're hearing some
Somebody's TV.
you could just mute your.
There you go. Thank you, Izzy. So now we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is a review of the fiscal year 2019 projects. Amy, you sent us an update in email form.
Right.
And do you want to just give a quick review of the 2019 projects for us, please?
Sure. And also I'll start off by saying that the total amount that you awarded was $1,389,000. So if you want to jot that number down at the bottom, like on the last page under projects, that's the total, or wherever you want. And the remaining amount that is, committed but not spent yet on these projects that I have calculated is $684,846. $684,846.
Amy, is it possible for folks for you to put numbers like that in the chat function?
No, because I was following security protocol on all this and disabled the chat for this. It's a long story. That was before things were changed about how participants can, the public can participate. So I can't do that, and I can't share screen. But I can give you the numbers again. Again, it's 1,389,000 that was committed for the FY19 projects. And the remaining amount yet to be spent is 684,846 dollars. And if we just go through this, I don't know if you all have this chart in front of you. The Holy Boys and Girls Club, you can see what the award was, 359,689. They have expended 144,793, and their remaining balance is 214,896. And then you can see the deadline for this project is June 30th, 2020. And the phase one, the first part of the deadline is November 30th, 2019. And they're doing pretty well because they're more than 50% complete and construction work is continuing. So that is ongoing. And as far as I know, and I got an invoice from them fairly recently. Shall I keep going through this?
Yes.
Okay. So then the next one, Glutech Woods, or Glotech Woods, the award was $177,900, and they've expended $165,150, as you can see here, with a remaining balance of committed funds of $12,750. The deadline is June 30th, 2019. This is from their application, because we never required a contract for this particular project because it didn't make sense. He was buying the open space. So this project is almost complete, and actually Rosemary still there? You might want to say something about it. You got to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, here I go. So as of today, we have a sign going up, and so the bill for that's coming in for $680, and that goes against the Holyoke due diligence, Holyoke Conservation Commission. And at this point, we're getting a sign off as of tomorrow on the conservation restriction with Yoni, who's the new conservation person, has to sign off for Kestrel Land Trust, and then the rest of the money will be billed. So there may be a little bit of money left over, and hopefully we're going to try to get this done very soon, so we'll know that.
Yeah, and the sign Rosemary's talking about is the one that mentions the CPAC. This committee
Right.
is giving support, acknowledging the support of the CPAC.
So it'll be right at the property, and it just says that this is the open space project for the Community Preservation Act, and in conjunction with Holyoke Conservation Commission, the Glotech family, and Kestrel Land Trust. So on this project, the city owns the property, and Kestrel Land Trust is going to hold the conservation restriction. That means for its lifetime, Kestrel once a year will go out and monitor the property, which is 52 or 53 acres, to make sure everything is intact and there's no dumping, there's no over ATV use and things like that. And if there are, then they will just report that to the city, and then the city will take action if they have to. But at this point, it looks good.
The next one is the Annex lanterns, and that has been expended, $500, as you can see here. And the only thing, they are almost complete, and I did get sort of a report and the invoice, to submit for Camille Peters, who's the metal worker who created the lanterns. The only thing is that the lanterns haven't been installed yet. And as you can imagine, that's not really a priority right now for the DPW, and they need to be electrified. And then there's a question of whether they should, we do have in the contract that they need to, at their own cost, put some kind of signage up acknowledging the CPA, which maybe could go just inside the door. The deadline for that on the contract was December 31st, 2019. However, I think it's possible they may want some kind of extension given the pandemic and all of that. So I did, I think that if, probably the committee would be open to that if they put something in writing, that they needed a little more time. So that's Annex lanterns. And then Smith Ferry Cemetery for 5,300. That, as you already know, is completed. And then stained glass, all the rest have not been, all the other projects have not begun, and they have not, put in any invoices. So you can see that. And I think that with the stained glass windows, I did hear from Bob Parent that they received some kind of extension into May for, there was some issue, I think about this, Kip, where they were saying that they needed a really quick turnaround. Oh, sorry, you know what? I'm getting confused. I'm thinking about the new application, not the old one. Scratch that completely. Okay, so as you can see on here that the plan is that in June, by June 1st, the windows are supposed to be restored, and that they'll be installed by July 31st of this year, 2020.
Okay.
And they did receive that funding match. So hopefully, I don't know, hopefully that can still be on schedule. And then MIFA, the Victory Theater, $100,000. Again, their deadline is December 1st, 2020, unless the CPC grants an extension for good cause shown. This is in the contract. So, however, as you can see in the last column, it does say must notify the committee that they have secured 100% of the funds, that $45 million that they need, by December 1st, 2020. But the contract also states in no event later than December 1st, 2021 under termination, which makes it seem a little vague, almost saying that they could possibly have until December 1st, 2021. I might have to ask the, city solicitor more about that. So that's Victory Theater. Then 348 Chestnut Street for $50,000. Again, nothing expended here because this is on a later schedule, is supposed to be completed by December 31st, 2021. And 50% of the construction is supposed to be completed by June 30th of 2021.
Okay.
You can see the details on the final column. And I think they haven't, although of course they've signed the contract, as all of these projects have, except for One Holyoke CDC, the preservation restriction, we're still working on that with them. The city solicitor is still working on that and keeping me in on the loop with them on that for the 25 years. And then 337 Chestnut Street, $50,000. The deadline for that will be December 31st, 2021. And the windows and siding have to be done by July 31st, 2021. And it's the same information as above. An affordable housing restriction is required instead of a historic, preservation restriction. And then on to the last page, 123 Pine Street for the historic project is $30,000 is committed to them, and it should be completed by, the deadline is June 30th, 2022. So not for a while. And funding commitments must be secured by July 31st, 2021. If not, the grant will terminate. Says when the reports are due. 123 Pine Street housing project, you've committed $120,000 for that project, and the deadline is June 30th, 2022. Same information as above in terms of when the funding commitments have to be secured before the grant terminates, which is July 31st, 2021. 43 Canal Street for 32,000. Well, Mike is here in the meeting. I know that my understanding is that maybe Mike wants to talk about this himself, but he wants to reduce the time of the preservation restriction to 5 years for certain elements of the project instead of 25 for the paint signage, paint color, signage, and lighting and other exterior features by the committee. However, as I've told him after consulting with the city solicitor and running up against this with another, recipient, this isn't really in keeping with what our city solicitor office and I have researched on preservation restrictions. They're normally all inclusive for the set time period. And that's to be in keeping with the U.S. Secretary of the Interior standards, which ensures that CPA funds are used for the public benefit because of the anti-aid amendments. So
do we want to take up that discussion now or later after we finish the review?
Well, we might as well talk about it now. Michael, do you have access to be able to discuss your concerns about the conservation restriction or preservation restriction? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And to just give you some background on what I've been, how I've been addressing this since I was in front of you guys last year. I was asked on several occasions, would I be prepared to sign a restriction? I said, yes, but I need to see it first. The terms were not really that clearly known our first time dealing with this. When it came back as a 25-year restriction, I looked at the terms of it very carefully and also brought that back both to the One Hoyoke Board of Directors and to the community group that we formed, the Flats board that is overseeing the activities 3 Canal Street. The concern was that we've received enough funding to address the stucco on the exterior of the building, but there are many circumstances, if you read Exhibit E in particular, and some of the language in the front of the proposed restriction, that go beyond just the presence of the stucco, but also generally the cosmetic appearance of the exterior of the building. And as I'm reading it, to some extent, it does reach into the inside of the building. For instance, if we had to do any interior work that all had to be in keeping with the U.S. Department of the Interior, that could be extremely limiting in a building where we've got dynamic usage and, a not very clear sense of what we would be doing 10 years from now. So what I proposed as an alternative that the city solicitor is looking at right now is, as far as the stucco is concerned, absolutely 25 years is fine. The public benefit is that the exterior appearance should be the stucco that the city is purchasing. If it's damaged in any way, it would be our responsibility to maintain a stucco exterior and repair it. We'd certainly not have any ability to change that medium of a facade without going to the Historic Commission. And that's absolutely fine. But then in terms of, and my particular concern here is about signage and the fact that what we need to do with signage might change over time, and what we do with some of the exterior features, even in some minor ways, might want to be adjusted to meet the requests of the members of the Flats Community Advisory Board or our Board of Directors. And the 25 years is a very long time to have to go and get approval every time we wanted to do an exterior change. And, where are we if they say no? So basically, the size of the grant, which is relatively small, does not match very well the scope of the restriction, which is fairly large. And I think that may be the nature of the beast. It just may very well be that small grants under the historic preservation aren't a good match for what CPA requires you to do. And I'm not sure we're done researching that yet. And if we can't just find some middle ground, 5 years isn't an absolute. That's a proposal to start a conversation. The scale of what I wrote in Exhibit E is really just trying to draw a line between maintaining that core stucco exterior and having more flexibility down the road in terms of what the overall cosmetic appearances are. You know, if that's not possible, and I don't know, and it may very well be the case that it isn't possible, we may have to let this go. And I think that decision can be known and can be made probably as soon as your next meeting a month from now. The other thing that I tried to offer is I think you do want to know what the overall exterior appearance of this building is going to be when we finish this project, and that it should be left alone for a reasonable period of time. So I would vet with the Historic Commission or with the CPC some rendering of what the lighting and the signage and everything and the color scheme, everything would look like as we do this in the immediate future, and leave that alone for sure for 5 years. But what I'm trying to take out of that restriction is the cosmetic elements, and certainly I can't let you inside the building. You haven't funded anything inside the building, and that's where things could get really challenging, expensive down the road. You know, if that, and so it's primarily, if we have to go inside and make some changes and deal with the Department of the Interior on the inside, I can't do that for $32,000. It's just too much of an encumbrance on the building. So that's the challenge.
So it sounds as though one of the things that it might be useful for us to have a look at is whether we can reasonably separate out anything that might require you to do anything inside the building. Because
Right.
The exterior, it seems to me, I understand your point about the flexibility that you want, but from our point of view, if this is a historic renovation, I think that the idea is for it to, in fact, match a fairly firm, inflexible rendering or recreation of what the historic, accurate facade looks like. I'm not sure that we can reasonably say after 5 years, you can play around with the look. The appearance is the public benefit here. But the interior, you know, as you say, we're not addressing that. And I wonder whether it's worth checking and seeing, you know, if you can tell us what precisely in the language you think makes it a risk that you would have to maintain the interior. Maybe we could look at whether that can come out.
Yep.
I agree with that, Mimi.
If I can suggest, what I responded to was primarily Exhibit E and a couple of small language changes in the front end of the document. It may be a good thing for me to make sure Amy has that so I can share it with everyone. And also, I can also go back and highlight where language exists that I perceive could be interpreted as bringing it inside the building. So you can see it as well. And, you know, I don't think it's against legalese that you can't just see it, make your own conclusions.
Yeah, you know, that would be very helpful because that way maybe we can address your concerns without impinging too badly on ours.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad to do that.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on Canal Street project and Michael's funding and concerns about the preservation restrictions?
You got some hands up there.
Okay, go ahead.
There are 3 people raising their hands.
I can only see, hang on,
Can you hit the gallery view, Kip, so you can see everyone?
I did. Thank you.
Or the
Okay,
participants
so
button with the
go
shoulder.
ahead, Meg. You have some comments?
I just wanted to reiterate what Mimi said and say that I agree if we're focusing primarily on the stucco and on the exterior, that it makes sense to not have the historic preservation restriction include the interior of the building. But I do think that it's important that it extend to the exterior more holistically than just the stucco itself.
Okay. Mike, anything else, Meg? Mike Falsetti?
Kip, I would just offer that whatever Mike has come up with as a compromise and an alternative, as long as the city solicitor agrees to it, I'm for it. I mean, to me, the city solicitor is the lawyer for the city, and if she puts her blessing on whatever Mike comes up with, and there's a compromise and an understanding, then it's fine with me.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Amy, you wanted to? Rosemary, you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay, your hand is
Got
up.
your hand up, yeah.
I do. Oh, that was from before. That was from before.
Testing. Okay, Amy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been working closely with the city solicitor's office on this because it came up with in one other circumstance with the Victory Theater, because at first their lawyer was saying, why does the preservation restriction have to encompass the whole building if CPA is only funding the light fixtures? But we researched this, closely, and also contacted another CPA community who's been in operation for a long time and looked at their agreements and also consulted with the MHC. And what we were doing in that case was, that's the standard, what we were doing, that it should encompass the whole building, because the whole reason that the committee decided to grant the funds was because it's a historic resources, that the building itself is a historic resource. So it's not, if they just only promise to preserve the light fixtures, but they change the whole building, that the light fixtures are of no value to the public benefit. So, that's what we're saying to them. And that's, there's never been a question about this with other CPA projects that we've learned about. So the only reason the city solicitor staff person asked me to bring this up was, of course, because in this situation, Mike has not signed the contract yet. So she really was asking the committee to, take a look at this. And I'm just letting you know that it seems important to be fair and to make sure that what we're saying, to one applicant is the same, or recipient is the same as to another. And I hear what people are saying. I didn't realize that the PR sounds like it's including the interior in this case, because the interior, as far as I know, is not, part of the historic, what's historically important, but the facade is. So, and the paint color is part of the facade, as well as some of the other things. So that's how.
So just, I would like to add 2 cents on the issue with the Victory Theater. Is my understanding there, the difference is that they have, as part of being granted historic tax credits, they have by the state, and then they also have some Department of Interior federal money. They have restrictions on what they can do there that come from the state and federal government. And I think the concern is that they don't want there to be a conflict between what the federal government is telling them or the state government is telling them they have to do, and then what we would be adding on another restriction that might be in conflict with the things that they're doing. And I don't want to really, the point is that I think the conversation with Michael Moriarty and comparing that to the Victory Theater is not necessarily, apples to apples. And, I think the bottom line on Michael for you know, the exterior of the Canal Street building is, you know, there is not another controlling entity on what happens with that. So the money that you would get from the historic preservation category of the CPA funding, and whatever restrictions are put in place in that agreement will be the only ones that are there. So the concerns are that, as my concern would be that, you know, for funding something to maintain the historic conditions on the exterior of a building, that whatever happens for some period of time going forward is in accordance with continuing that historic aesthetic. So, but I'm very much open to, you know, you're working with the solicitor to come up with some language that we can review at the next, if you're, you know, you have the inclination to do so, and you're successful at negotiating something with them, and if we come back at our next meeting, you know, we can act on it at that point. I mean, that's my sense of it. I don't know, again, what other members of the committee, how they feel about, you know, continuing, and or how you feel, Michael, about continuing this to, you know, for another 30 days or so while we try to reach a compromise that makes the committee comfortable and makes, you know, for $32,000, how much of a burden is it for you? You know, that's, so can we bridge that gap or not? And I would be willing to, you know, to give you until our next meeting to try to come up with that. And again, I don't know how other people feel. So anybody else want to speak up on this issue? And Michael, you have anything else you want to add to it?
So I'll just say we've put a lot of effort into getting to this point, and I you know, want to try to find a right spot and get this done. I'd like to make that portion of Canal Street look a lot more presentable and serve the folks that are using the building as we intended. And also, you know, quite frankly, under the circumstances our staff at One Holyoke is working in right now, I don't think we're pressed too hard to deal with this for another 30 days. That's just not a problem. And, you know, I hope it works. If it wasn't meant to be, I think it's just a learning example that there's a certain smallness of scale that just may not make a lot of sense for historic preservation projects. And now we know. So I'll just work harder over the course of the next month to come. I would like to get a resolution in May simply because we really don't need to be dragging this thing out forever. So.
Anybody else have any comments? All set? Does that seem reasonable to everybody? I mean, I don't think we need to vote. I'm sorry?
Rosemary has her hand raised.
No, I don't. How did I do that?
Oh, well, then you must have left it up.
So I just wanted to highlight this
That was
because
just on a vote.
it's a Zoom feature that you have to go to participants and then click on yourself, and then you'll notice where it says yourself. If you raise your hand once, it will stay raised until you personally unclick it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You can.
And so that's just a weird feature to the program you have to know.
Okay. All right. Because I raised it to vote.
Yeah, right.
All right. I better unraise that hand.
Anybody else have any comments on this issue? Anybody concerns about, I guess, just generally tabling this for 30 days?
No, I think it's a good resolution. We'll work on what Michael sends us and we'll go from there.
Great. Michael, and the sooner you can get it to us, you know, then if we have an opportunity to look at it before our next meeting, that would be helpful too. So it's not the first time we're seeing it at the next meeting. And good luck. Good luck. Thank you.
May I, you want me to stick around for the next item, or should I be checking off at this point?
Well, you know, I know what you want to talk about. We could, we could take our, well, let me just see if anybody else has anything on 2019 projects they want to talk about. No?
No,
Hearing
everything's
none?
good.
All right, so I had as agenda item number 3, a treasurer's report. Or any update on the finances. We do have some information on that, but we could take it out of order, Michael, so we could talk about the possible emergency funding issue, and then we'll go back and talk about finances after, as long as that works for everybody on the committee.
Sounds good.
Okay. So then let's jump to agenda item number 4. We'll take them out of order. And item number 4 is possible emergency funding requests for projects. That's kind of a general category because I think there are things out there, but more specifically, right in front of us, probably very quickly, is some type of emergency housing assistance, whether it's rental assistance, or there is a possibility of providing funding for ownership mortgage payments. But it seems that more likely we may see an application for some funding on rental assistance. We all know what kind of world we're living in right now, and housing is obviously critical to maintaining social distancing and health. And so, Amy, we had a call earlier today, a conference call. I don't know how many people participated in that from the committee. I listened. Elaine, Amy, you were on. And so, Elaine and Amy and Michael heard everything that I heard and probably know more about it than I do. But my, very short summary of what I have learned over the last few days is that, rental assistance is an allowable category, an allowable program under the housing category, affordable housing category of the CPA legislation. And it's very clear that it is. There's a lot of communities that are looking at using CPA funds to help people pay their rent, and through different programs and different applications and the other thing that I took away from today's call is that, the CPC has a lot of flexibility as to how it approaches this potential program. And also, obviously that has to go to we make recommendations, go to the city council. So, it is an allowed program. That we are living in a time where it's difficult for people to pay their rent. There are moratoriums on evicting people from their homes. That's going to last for some period of time, but that doesn't mean that your obligation to pay rent isn't continuing to grow and won't be existing at the end. So, I think that it's important for us all to be aware of this, because we have later on in the agenda, consideration of 2020 applications. We're going to talk about the finances that we have in another agenda item. But, these things are that's why it's on, we don't have an application in front of us today for emergency funding, but we may get one. And knowing that may impact how we want to vote on some of the pending applications that we have in front of us. So I think that's why it was important to have this agenda item today. And so, I mean, I don't know, Mayor, if you have any comments about what you heard today, what you know about the program, any thoughts about, and anybody else, and Michael, then I'd like to hear what you have to say, what you might be thinking too.
Yeah, well, the first thing that I took away from that is if we decide that we want to do this kind of program, that we have to determine the need out there. And the only way we can do that is to partner with an organization or organizations who have that information for us, like the Hoyoke Housing Authority, people who are already in the housing business, and help us to know what the need is out there. And then we can go from there as to whether if it's a need that we can fulfill or not. I mean, if we, I don't think that they encourage individual apartment renters to apply to us and ask us for rental. You know, it has to be, it's a bigger process than that. I mean, it has to be, you know, like an organization has to propose that they want us to help them with rental assistance, like the housing authority, the Hoyoke Housing Authority, and then there's others in the city who would want to do this kind of program. So, you know, we need to, and maybe Amy, I don't know, I hate to put work onto Amy, but that she should reach out maybe to the Hoyoke Housing Authority and other housing organizations in the city and see what the need is, and then bring that back to us, and we can determine from there whether that's something we want to do.
Go ahead, Meg, you have something you want to say?
Just a question for the folks who are on the call. From what I read, is it that it's not necessarily that individual renters themselves would be applying to us, but that, for example, an organization would help us effectively run the program, and they would give the money to landlords, and then landlords would forgive the rent.
Correct.
Like, am I understanding that process correctly? Because I'm thinking about a number of landlords I know in the city who have already been asked by people to either forgive or to delay collection on rent. And I can imagine right now with a moratorium on evictions, there's a number of landlords, of course, that are going to suffer as a result of that. But also, like, give it a number of months. What happens when that eviction moratorium gets lifted and suddenly people have 4 months of back rent they have to come up with very quickly and don't have access to? Like, I'm wondering about, maybe not right now, but setting up a program that would be more addressing those issues coming up in several months.
Amy, you look like you wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah, I was just, yeah, I think that's a really good point, Meg. And I've also talked to Mike a lot about it. So, and he's pretty knowledgeable, so I'm sure he can add. But yeah, the way that it works is that we would have to be partnering with somebody very familiar with this who could operate this rental assistance program and figure out how to go about it and how to, you know, create an application that explains who is eligible. And there's a lot of details and complexity that go into it. And then there would be a contract between the people who are eligible with, you know, between the tenant, the landlord, and the administrator, who would be this partner. For example, if Mike Moriarty with One Holyoke CDC were to submit an application. And also, I agree with Elaine that, yeah, it's really important to find out what the need is. And it's true that the timing is something to think about, I think, like Meg is saying, because, you know, I at first thought, oh, we've got to do this right away. But what I got from that session today that Elaine and Kip were at is that they were saying that we're not really behind, and that it's okay to really think this through, and you don't necessarily have to act immediately, because there could be a need further down the line, you know, like Meg is pointing out. So
this strikes me
I
as
think
tremendously
go ahead, Mimi. I'm sorry, you got something to say?
Yeah, it's clear that this is a very complicated situation, and we're going to have to be careful with it. And I think if we're going to go forward with it, we need to take the time, do it right. I did review the documents from today's meeting, even though I was not on the call. But I also think we need to make everybody in the city who does operate some kind of housing assistance or has expertise in the field aware of considering this before we jump in, choose a vendor, and start moving. Because we don't know. We don't know whether the Holyoke Housing Authority, One Holyoke, somebody who's out there that we don't deal with regularly. So I think that we're just not going to have a fast, we do this today or we do this into the next kind of project.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
I raised my hand a while ago. I was waiting to be called. It sounds very familiar, the setup, right? I believe One Holyoke kind of runs a similar program out of the CDB with the mayor's office and the CDBG funding when it comes to helping homeowners with repairs on their homes if they can't afford it. I don't know exactly what the program is called. I'm sure Mike knows exactly what it's called, but there's a program where if I qualify, right, I could apply, and they have a form, they have everything already laid out. And if I qualify, they'll give me, I guess they're the fiscal conduits that hold on to the money and they disperse the funds from the city. It's kind of the same situation that it sounds like you guys are explaining right now. So, I mean, if there's already something similar to that, I think it would be good for us to start from the looking at what they have already done, like with regards to the application process, with regards to the criteria, if we move on to do this, right? With regards to the criteria, with regards to how many people in line and who's going to be first and who's not going to be first, or what disqualifies you. I just wanted to add that. Like the program, I read through I was supposed to make it to the meeting, but I couldn't. But I ended up reading through some of the stuff, and it kind of sounds like we are kind of sort of doing this stuff already with some of the nonprofits in the community. It's just in a different fashion. If we could kind of piggyback off of some of that, if we move forward on doing this, piggyback on some of that to then create it so that it fits the model for the rental assistance thingamajigger or whatever. But yeah, that's
just the other thing about this is it makes sense, I think, because we think there is going to be a need to hold off on the other affordable housing applications before us and hang on to whatever money we were going to put into affordable housing until we know that we're not going to need it for the emergency, or that we know that we do need it, and it will be better not to have already committed it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think clearly
that makes a lot of sense, Mimi.
Well, and I think that when we get into this consideration of the 2020 applications, that certainly will be in my mind as I'm considering whether or not to fund any other project. So, Mike Falsetti, I see you raising your hand over there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, are you all set? Are you finished?
For now.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I think this will, I don't think we have any business getting involved in this, something of which the scope of it may bankrupt the fund. This is not something that I think the voters voted on when they voted to have this tax surcharge on their real estate taxes to pay for rental assistance. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm thinking this scope, this may turn into a Leviathan and sink the whole budget. There's enough nonprofits. There's the Holyoke Housing Authority, Holyoke One, and other nonprofits that are involved in this rental assistance programs. Let it take it from their budgets. This budget is tight now, and it's not gonna get any better if the tax revenues or the absence of tax revenue continues on the path that it's going. We're barely going to have enough money to fund even the bare bones projects we have in front of us. But to have rental assistance, I mean, how long does this assistance last? A year, 2 years, 5 years? What is the scope of the people? Who's going to decide who gets what? I don't want to go there. There's enough nonprofits that do this for a living. Let them do it. We don't have the money to take on this project, and I'm not saying it's not worthy, but taking money from this pot of money, I don't agree to, and I don't want to get involved in it. There's enough nonprofits that do this already.
Okay, duly noted. Amy, you were raising your hand. You had something to say?
I just wanted to say that, Mike, if this were to go forward, it would be very, very specific. And from our session today, we learned that the model people are using is that this is for people who are directly impacted by the COVID-19, where they would have to show that their income changed once they lost their job and they were unable to pay rent. Plus, it would be a temporary, most likely a temporary rental assistance that would actually, the payments would go directly to landlords of tenants who are unable to pay at least a portion of their rent. And it would be limited normally to, like most programs are doing it for 3 months. So it's a very targeted type of thing. And the idea is to look for a gap. So you mentioned other ways that people can get rental assistance, like through other programs. We would have to research, maybe working with Mike or whatever applicant wants to apply for this. We'd have to find out where are there gaps where people are, people who are unable to get that assistance through the established programs like RAFT or CDBG or HOME or what have you. So it would be a very targeted type of limited process.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it a bit. There's enough nonprofits that do this already. We don't need this extra. And besides, who's gonna say no to a person who may have lost their job permanently? What do we do then? I don't want to go down, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote against this. I don't think we should get involved in it. We have very little money as it is, and I don't see the next year or two being banner years for tax collections. On the contrary, I think it's going to, our existing budgets are going to contract. They're not going to expand. So I don't think there's enough from this pot of money. I'm not saying the need isn't bad. It's a good need, but let other people that are in the business with their own pots of money, let them take care of it. I don't think this committee has the time or the money to take on this added expense. And I don't want to get involved in making and voting on who's going to get how much money and how long it's going to last. I don't want any part of it.
Meg, you had your hand up to say something.
Yeah, along the line, I hear what you're saying, Mike. And I'm thinking that one thing that would make me feel comfortable moving forward with this would be not just, setting a time period, but really naming an amount of money where it's a limited amount of money. I think that might make it clear to us. Like if we say we're willing to put forward $400,000, $100,000, like what's that amount of money where we're saying from this budget, we would see into that assistance. I also think that we should return to the conversation of if we could combine funding years so that we could still fund our existing projects or a great number of them and also provide emergency rental assistance.
I think that if we have $60,000 right now in the budget towards housing program, our category for housing, and I don't see a problem where we could put that aside for now until we decide whether we're going to do this program or not. I mean, it wouldn't hurt any of the other programs that we would want to fund.
But technically, we could put forward hundreds of thousands of dollars towards housing. Like we have applicants for this cycle where we could spend our entire budget this time on just the housing applicants.
But we know we can't because we have certain categories we have to follow, and 10% is for housing. So we could put our $60,000 that's put aside for that category for now, and just say, like Mimi mentioned before, put that money aside until we decide whether we're going to do this or not. But that doesn't mean we're going to do this. But if we do, the money will be there, and we just won't fund any other housing projects.
So we could do everything except for the 10% for historic preservation and open space.
For housing. Yeah, right. The housing category.
So,
for affordable housing category.
Plus
So-
all of the general, I'm just saying it goes beyond that because we could also use any funds in the general funds other than the 10% we have to spend on historic preservation and open space.
Yeah, yes, we could do that, but I would not want to do that at this point in time.
I'm just trying to understand what we could and couldn't.
Yes, right. You're right. You're right.
So let me point out, we don't have an application in front of us, right? So we're kind of deliberating in some ways on an application that isn't in front of us. What I think would be helpful, again, is to kind of understand that an application may come. CPA funds it is an allowable use of CPA funds. We have tremendous amount of flexibility as far as what the program looks like. I think some really good advice we heard today was to partner with an organization that knows what they're doing. We actually, I believe what I heard today was we could run this program ourselves, but it would be a big mistake because we don't know what we're doing. I would not be in support of doing that. I just want to point out the level of flexibility in this program. The very clear advice was to partner with an organization that knows what they're doing. And the way the program works for us, we're not soliciting proposals. We are reacting to, we do generally solicit proposals, but not specific ones. We're not going out and telling people, hey, you should give us a proposal for home ownership, or you should give us a proposal for rental assistance. We're putting out an application that says, if you're in in one of the eligible categories, submit an application. Our process also allows for the submission of emergency applications. So we may see one. And, Michael, you're here, you and I have had conversations about whether or not funds could be used this way. We've learned they can. The wisdom of doing it, as Mike Falsetti points out, is, up for the individual committee members to decide. And then again, we're making recommendations to the city council. They're ultimately going to decide whether or not, if we recommend funding of a program like this, they think it's, worth funding or not. So Mike, you want to just maybe give us a couple minutes about what you're seeing and thinking, and, the likelihood of you submitting an application, and, I know we can't really get into like who qualifies and how much and how long, and the details of that I think are still to come, but just like kind of a broad overview of what you're thinking about an application submission might look like.
Thank you. Very happy to. And I want to tell you, this conversation is incredibly helpful to me because I do have a task in front of me. I have a blank application sitting on my desk right now. It's blank intentionally because I wanted to get more information from this phone call that the Mass Housing Partnership and the Citizens Housing organization partnered up and did today to try to find good models. But I first heard about this as a possibility through my membership in a statewide organization called the Massachusetts Association of Community Development Corporations, learning that other organizations like Metro West CDC, Wales CDC in Waltham, and others have been engaged in this work already. And I knew the minute people were losing work that there's going to be a profound and serious impact in this community coming soon, because I know Holyoke's median income in the Springfield metropolitan area is 75% of the median income in the Western Mass area. The Springfield Metropolitan District is a statistical area that's made up of Hamden, Hampshire, and Franklin County. We're only 6% of the statistical area we live in. And I deal with that stuff all the time. I know what the income limits are. I know what the average rents are in the area. And what it always highlights year after year is just how much deeper the level of poverty is in Holyoke compared to most of even the rest of the valley. And that poverty is definitely going to impact housing security going forward. Here's what I know this program can't do. It's not going to solve homelessness problems for families that have already lost their homes. And I got statistics today. Registered in the Holyoke Public Schools today are over 460 kids who are homeless right now, but are enrolled in the Holyoke Public Schools today. And that's nearly 10% of our whole school population. That's how bad our average income is only 3/4 of where we live. And now people are losing their incomes all over the place. I also know this, folks who are already getting Section 8 certificates, they don't need this kind of extraordinary help. People who are already receiving the benefits that are out there through organizations like ours and Wayfinders, like the raft benefits that are provided through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, people need to be directed to get those first. This is not a resource of first resort wherever it's being done. It's a resource of last resort. But we also know this. Some of the messaging behind this foreclosure and eviction prevention is sending out a message that it's maybe rent forgiveness. And as Meg correctly pointed out, it's not. And people could be digging themselves into holes they're not going to be able to dig themselves out of. There is absolutely no way there's enough CPA money in Holyoke to even help a relatively small number of people dig their way all the way out of this hole. I think what it can do is provide just that fair enough amount of support, maybe to several dozen, maybe to several hundred households, to get them through this moment of extraordinary crisis. So short-term, limited benefit of last resort. These are all of the elements that will go into the application I intend to write. It would be my intention to get an application before you. It could very well be that the Housing Authority or other organizations who have this capacity are drafting similar documents at once, and you could be vetting competing documents. And I think that's absolutely fair, and I think that's absolutely great. What I'm trying to do is understand as well as I can, how can Holyoke help the renters in this poor community in a way that I see renters in other Massachusetts communities getting help at this moment of crisis. And I think it's my job as the executive director of a CDC here in the city to see that as a call to action, take it seriously, and put something credible and worthwhile in front of you. So that's my task going forward. I learned a lot from today's phone call, which, by the way, was recorded. So it'll be available to any of you who are interested later on. I've already received documentation that Metro CDC uses for their programs. So I don't have to completely invent a wheel. I can use things that are tested and tried and true already. But finally, as Izzy Rivera pointed out, we have been the operators of a community development block grant program called the Neighborhood Improvement Program for over 45 years. It's one of the oldest CDGB programs in the United States of America. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. We give up to $10,000 to people based on criteria to fix their homes. We've been doing it for a long, long time. And I know I can model the way this program operates so that it's very similar to the Neighborhood Improvement Program, and therefore use our experience to become a capable and reliable deliverer of a program like this, if it's the belief of a majority of the committee that it's a need that should be filled and that it's a reasonable proposal that I put in front of you. So my job right now is to try to craft that reasonable proposal. You should know I've been in contact with city councilors, been in contact with with Kip and with Amy. I've been in contact with the mayor's office. I'm in contact with many people out of town, because this can't just be Mike Moriarty's notions of some nice thing to do. It's got to be credible, responsible, workable. And I definitely need a lot of input from a lot of places in order to develop a proposal like that. And even, as I said, this evening's conversation provides me with a lot of understanding and guidance about what can make sense. So what you'll know is that others may, but certainly One Holyoke CDC will be putting a proposal for your consideration in front of you, hopefully within the next 30 days.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael, what's the median income level, just so that we could have that aired in the meeting?
Sure, it's $40,000 in Holyoke. It's $55,000, roughly, I'm rounding, in the greater Springfield metropolitan area. It's somewhat over 65 throughout Massachusetts.
And your opinion is that we will be allowed to use the Springfield statistical median income in order to say which people would be able to fall underneath affordable housing requirements, which is being no more than above 100% of the median income.
Correct. And I will verify, but I'm pretty sure the HUD statistics are the only things that are readily available for anybody else doing these programs. There may be some stuff from DHCD in Massachusetts, but I don't think it's granular enough.
Okay, and that is for a household? Like, does that affect if it's one person versus a family of 4?
That's part of what the HUD chart makes really useful. It does allocate the thing from households of 1 to households of 8.
Could you send that to us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for Mike? And we're all set. Michael, thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to log off at this point then.
Okay,
Thank you all
great.
very much for your time and great conversation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike,
All right.
So I was thinking, and while he was talking about the math of that, when he was saying, you know, this could be a program for a dozen to 100 families. And
He said several dozen or several hundred.
okay, so I heard dozen to 100. So I was thinking, you know, let's say that we're talking about rent and he's saying temporary for several months. So I was thinking, let's say the rent we're assuming is $1,200 and it's for 3 months. That's $3,600. So then how, you know, much would the program cost if it was for 100 people in that scenario? The program would cost $360,000.
It's unlikely that it would ever cover somebody's complete rent. It would be a certain percentage. This is one thing that we learned in the session today.
Do you know what percentage?
Well, it depends on what every community decides to do.
I think they recommended $500 as a median amount, but that's just an average amount that they recommended towards rental.
So we'll see what the application looks like, right? I mean, that's the beauty of it, is we're not designing the program, right? We're just going to sit here and say whether we think
Yeah,
it makes sense to recommend this for funding or not, and we'll
right.
we'll vote and
There is one instance in which we would have to put it out there, though, and that is based on the procurement laws, because I was advised by Shelley Goring of the Mass Housing Partnership to contact our procurement officer because of the administration fee. Now, Mike says, he said to me that he thought that it's possible that he wouldn't require an administration fee, that it would be funded by some philanthropic source. However, what Lori said, but he wasn't certain about that. Lori Bellinger, the procurement chief officer, said if the administrative fee is expected to be over 10,000, then you need to create a scope of work and send out to at least 3 folks who can provide this service. You do not need to get 3 responses. In this case, you need to document your efforts. This would include email solicitations with responses. Ideally, she said, you should do this even if the amount is under 10,000 to see what others can offer. She said, if Mike is the only one that can provide this service, she'll need compelling backup as to why he is the sole service provider if the fee will be over 10,000.
right. And also,
Fucking kidding me.
If no money is going to administration, we don't have to do that.
Right.
So let's just see what the application looks like. If it'll be a budget in there. If he's proposing administrative fees over, then we need to deal with procurement. Let's see what we get. And
yeah, I know that Sarah Meyer Zimbler of the Holyoke Housing Authority also expressed interest in this meeting. So I don't know if that means she might also be submitting something.
Well, we'll see what we get from them too.
Do we have a deadline?
That anti-supplement where, it would seem like in the call today, they were saying housing authorities have a hard time doing it because, they already have things like that in their budget. Let's just see what we get. We may not get any applications at all. I just thought it was important for the committee to understand, as we're talking about finances and talking about 2020 projects, that this might be on the horizon, and we should be aware of that as we're contemplating our support of funding other projects.
Mr. Chairman, can we return to the idea of combining our 2 fiscal years so that we could move forward with the idea of being able to fund what we have in front of us as well as consider emergency housing?
So,
Otherwise, I'm afraid we're stuck. Like, I don't know how I would vote on anything at this point, not really having a scope of this work.
well, Mayor, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I would caution that only because, as you know, Meg, we're always moving on an estimated budget. And our budget for FY21 has been done, but now that things have changed since we did that estimated budget, and I mean, when we may not even get even close to what's in that budget, and we don't even know if our match from the state will be the same as it has been, or if we'll even get one, because the state's down on their funding too. So there's no way we can know. We can't do FY21 include it with the FY20 because we don't have enough knowledge as to what we're going to get for the next year. We can't assume that we're going to get the same thing as we're getting this year. Is what I'm saying.
Mike, you had something you wanted to add?
I agree with Elaine. It would be the height of folly to combine both budgets. It's a rather large question mark, and then, quite frankly, a stark reality that fiscal 21 may be is from the state, especially. They may have not money they may not have the money to just to fund the basic necessities of life in the state. I would not combine both budgets. Keep it one set at a time. When we have to know that we have how much money in this budget, definite. And then when 21 arrives, how much money we got there. Let's not combine them under the presumption that the money that we're spending will be there, when the reality is, in all probability, it's not going to be there. Look at our estimates in just this letter from Amy, that we had said that we thought it would be about $541,000. Well, now it's $514,000 for our budget. Now, to say that 21, what will 21 be? I mean, what if the city tax rate or some big companies in the city don't reopen? There's a huge loss of taxes right there, and the subsequent problems that they cause. Plus, in the state, the funding that the state relies on, that might not be there. I couldn't agree with Elaine more. I agree with Elaine. Let's not combine them. Keep them separate. The history is not promising at the moment.
Well, and I'll
Open to whatever, Michael. I'm just putting it out there as a possibility because I'm trying to figure out what makes the most sense.
This is so I'd also point out, that we are not that far away from fiscal year 21 either. So it isn't, if we were to exhaust all of our funding voting for 2019 projects, we are right around the corner from from the next fiscal year where we have funds available. And I'm not suggesting that we should.
We don't have funds available yet. We won't
No,
have those.
right, no. So Amy, you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to correct one thing about the amount of funds that
So
have.
can I interrupt for just 1 second? Let's tackle that as the agenda item. Unless there's something.
But wait, it really directly relates to what Mike was just saying. I need to clarify that the 514,240 that I mentioned is the amount thus far, and the collections are not complete. So as I said in the email I sent, that we're predicting more than that, probably it could be about 600,000. So, and the other thing is that I consulted with Stuart Saganor about the question, because as I mentioned before, other CPA communities are awarding projects for FY21 right now. And he said he wouldn't automatically assume that tax collections will drop dramatically next year. And so far, he's not heard of other CPCs adjusting their FY21 revenue figures, but obviously it's early in the situation. And he was suggesting that I consult our financial officers with the city to find out, what they think about the estimate for FY21. And I did contact them today, but haven't heard back yet.
Okay, so look, we were talking emergency funding agenda item. We took that item out of order from discussing finances, a treasurer, if any updates. And I think that this discussion belongs in that agenda item. So, but just to wrap up, does anybody have anything else that they want to say about the potential emergency funding applications that we may get? We're all set. Okay, so look, let's move back to what was originally agenda item number 3 and talk about finances with the treasurer's report. Elaine, do you want to give us an update, or what your thoughts are, and then?
Yes, I can tell you that pretty much what we've already been discussing some of it, but what Amy sent out to you before this meeting is what the story is for FY20, and this is the money that we would be spending on FY20 projects. And I think that at this point in time, we might be okay and come very close to our estimate as to what we have for FY20 in our project allocations. I think that that people might be okay paying this quarterly billing right now for their taxes. It's going to be FY21 is the big question mark. And we estimated already. We already did our budget for FY21, and we'll just have to wait and see what our financial people here in the city think, that if we can count how much of that we can count on, or how much we should count on, and whether we should or not, because it could be a different story for FY21. FY20, I think we're okay. We know how much we have, approximately about $600,000 plus, and everybody has a copy of what the budget is, what the allocations are for the different categories, what we have left over in the reserve funding that we can use for towards those projects. And so I think that's all we can move on at this point in time, is and be fairly certain of, is our FY20 budget.
So when I look at these numbers, we're $120,000 behind what was expected to be collected by city revenues.
But they're not finished yet.
Right.
They've got till July 1st.
We still have May and June. Now they may be off. However, so there's 120 that hasn't been collected that may be collected in the rest of this fiscal year. However, we also received about $60,000 more in a state match than what we budgeted. So we had budgeted around $600,000. We're 540 right now. So we're like a 10% off of what we expected, but there is an opportunity still in the rest of this fiscal year for, there won't be more state money, I don't believe, but there is a chance there will be more city revenues. We just don't know how much they'll be. So we're not, for fiscal year 20, it doesn't seem like we're in terrible shape. You know, fiscal year 21 is a mystery, I think. What if state matches will be available? What city collections will be available? But I think that we have, we're in the ballpark on our fiscal year 20 budget, with hope to even exceed it if the city revenues match what we're budgeted. You know, it's another 120, we'd be 60 grand more than what we thought we were gonna have. So, you know, we have money that's nearly what we expected. So I don't know, anybody else have any input on Mike Falsetti?
Kip, just for our information, do we have, are you saying that we have close to $600,000 in the bank as we speak? Would that be correct?
540.
540. So we don't have 600, we have 540.
Correct.
So for tonight's discussion, for example, it's based on $540,000. Would that be correct?
I think that's a conservative position, but reasonable to take. I think it's also reasonable to forecast that there will be some more money coming in this year, but you know, that's not conservative. So, you know, depending on your bent, and as you're contemplating these, 2020 projects, where are we going to end up? If we start getting close to that number, Mike, I will become more concerned about it. But
as a point of information for myself in terms of the funding, does the mayor have the authority, or Amy, if you would know, or does the mayor by definition have to take the money he's taken as for taxes and has to by law give a certain percentage to our committee? Or does he have the ability to get it not to?
That's not how it works. No.
The mayor has.
That's all right. Well, just tell me.
It's a dedicated fund. It's the 2% surcharge or whatever the percent surcharge is dedicated for CPA, and then the CPA match funds go into this account. You know, laws can change, Mike. You know.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
But it would be a legislative change. It's not. I don't think it's this discretion of the city council or the mayor. It's not a slow.
The money is collected in addition to our taxes. 1.5% more is collected, and it's a separate account. It has nothing to do with the mayor or anybody else. It's just the citizens voted on that, and so that's the money that's put there, and no one else can touch that for anything else but us. For CPA.
Okay.
But it's based on what's collected for taxes. So if the taxes do go down because people can't pay their taxes, of course our money's going to go down too, because the 1.5% is based on what is collected.
Yes, I agree with you, Elaine. Yeah. Thank you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the finances of the CPC or CPA money available? We're all set. Amy, anything else that you want to say about the?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the city issued laptops for city employees for us to work remotely to access the city desktop, since I have to submit requisition orders to get people paid and, disperse funds. However, there's been a lot of problems with it. The laptop, not only just logging on and accessing the the desktop, but I discovered that it doesn't work for Zoom. So I have to use a different computer for that. So anyway, what I was thinking I might do is, I know Rosemary, you had donated a laptop to me a while ago from your company, which is sitting in my office. Do you happen to know if that laptop, you probably don't know, if it has a camera and a microphone on it?
I can, my son-in-law's the IT, I can ask him.
Yeah, that
So-
would be great if you could let me know, because if it does have those things, they'll, if I get brave enough, I can go to City Hall, wear a mask, go back to my office, get that laptop, and then there will be a way for the IT for the city to set it up, and that would work well. But if it doesn't work, if it doesn't have those features that I
So
need,
what are the 2 features?
microphone and a
Okay.
camera, so that I can do a Zoom meeting. If
Okay.
it does not have those features, then we have a good amount of funds left in the admin portion, the 5% that has to go to admin for the end of this fiscal year. I would, I last checked, it was around 15,000. So if that laptop doesn't have the right thing, I'm putting it out there that it might be sensible for me to be able to purchase a laptop.
I can get you a laptop. I mean, I have lots of used laptops. That's what we get those in on a regular basis.
Okay. Well, it has to be one that really works well, and
Okay.
has the camera.
You know, you
So
can
let me
use your
just see
phone,
what we
right?
have.
The other thing that
I
you
don't
can
want to
do
use
is
my
we could
phone
do-
because there are security issues with Zoom, actually, and I feel
Yeah.
it's much better for me to be using a city laptop or something dedicated, a dedicated laptop that's not my personal phone or.
But in terms of pure
So
technology,
I should get a laptop too.
Plus, I could possibly.
add
Let's see what I can
webcam
do.
and microphone. It's really easy to do.
Wait, I don't understand. Izzy, what did you say?
I said I should get a laptop too because I'm using my own personal stuff too.
We all
But-
are.
Right.
But
but
it's whatever.
I'm a staff employee. I mean, I'm an employee of the city, so.
All right, I'm a volunteer. I'm sorry.
Amy, that
I'm not at that
Well,
level.
You don't
I'm not
count.
at that level yet. My bad.
don't-
I'm not at that level yet. I'm sorry.
Wait,
Anyway,
the difference, Izzy, is that I have to access the Munis system to get people paid and do things like that. So I need.
Oh, that's a different argument. Yep, you got that.
Amy,
I'm sorry.
however, I feel
I
sure that this can be done. And if
think
there's a
this-
laptop that was working in City Hall, it will probably work in Amy's apartment. And if it does not have a microphone and a camera, and it does have a USB port, it is really easy and really inexpensive to add a camera and a microphone.
Right. That's right.
good point.
So we want to be able to get you set up.
So just to confirm, the city issued laptops do not have cameras and
Yes, these
microphones?
laptops were donated by the Holyoke Public Schools, and so maybe they never had the hardware for that stuff, and they have a lot of problems.
Okay. All right, let's move on. So,
Wait, I just don't know though. What is the final decision on this, though?
Okay,
well,
so
let's
Amy,
wait and see.
let me work with you on this. I'll help you get this
Okay.
together.
Okay.
Okay. You and I'll do it.
Okay. So agenda item number 5 is consideration of fiscal year 2020 projects.
I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing about what you brought up? The difference is also that I'm using the Zoom account from the city, right? You guys are clicking on a link. I don't know. Anyway, I'm very surprised that I'm being challenged on something which I think.
I'm not challenging you on it. That's not even. It was just not even that serious to me. I'm using my UMass account. If you look at mine, it doesn't say Israel Rivera. It says Clacos, my Center for Latin American Caribbean Studies. Like, it is what it is. It doesn't even matter. You can look at. You can have the laptop. It's fine with me. I don't care. It's not that serious. Like, I was just pointing it out. Like, I mean, whatever. It's fine.
Let's move on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, let's.
I'm with it.
let's-
I'm with it. I'm with it.
So we started to talk about consideration of fiscal year 2020 projects. That's the agenda item. I'm not sure exactly how to proceed. I think maybe in an effort to not spend 2 hours talking about it, maybe just get right to it. And, I would invite any of the committee members to make a motion to fund any of the projects that they want, and let's just start going through them and we'll see where we end up. I can't, there's a lot more complicated ways to do this. But I haven't, after giving it a lot of thought, I haven't come up with a compelling reason to not proceed this way. I'm happy to hear conflicting positions, and Mr. Falsetti has his hand up and is raising his hand, so I'll ask him.
Mr. Chairman, let's just start off. It says FY20 historic applicants. Let's start from the beginning. What does everyone think about I'm taking your job, Mr. Chairman. This is your job, but by way of organization, we have the FY20 historic applicants, then the open space, and finally the housing applicants. Let's just start from the beginning on the first page. Well, the Holyoke stained glass. You want to just start there?
Well, here's my argument against that, and I can be persuaded, right? This is just kind of a random list, and now we're prioritizing. And what happens when we get to the back of these things, and it's like, oh my God, I love that last proposal, but we didn't have any money because we appropriated them all before. And I was just thinking that maybe a way to prioritize it is to give the individual committee members an opportunity to make a motion to fund out of order any of these projects. And just, if people feel strongly about them, make a motion to fund them and just bang through them. And so there may be things on the list that nobody makes a motion to fund and they don't get funded.
Okay.
So
if I can jump in here, I have one way of going about this, which satisfies both criteria and both proposals, I think, is that as I look at the list, there are only a few of these things that constitute genuine emergencies. And for instance, I would move to fund the wisteria renovation because we heard compelling testimony that wisteria really needs it and they need that money now, or things are going to be, we could lose that museum for a year or for longer if we don't fund that. The stained glass windows are an ongoing project. We like the way they've been coming out. They're not asking for a lot of money. I think it makes sense to fund that. The merry-go-round is, that's the last vestige we really have of Mountain Park. That's also not a big grant they're requesting, the lower $26,170 for 4 horses. I don't know what the status of Lady Liberty is, but if that's an emergency where we would need to get moving on it, that's a small ask too. And I would happily move ahead with those because they're easy and they're needed now. Everything else on the list looks to me as though it can wait if we're not sure that we need to hang on to our funds for other uses.
Well, I mean, I do think that that's one of the criteria that can be used in making a motion to fund, but I don't think that at the beginning of it, we should go through the list and say emergency, not emergency, emergency, not emergency, because I think there's going to be some difference of opinion about the urgency of some of these projects, which is why I thought to just say, make a motion to fund a project. If it gets the votes, it gets funded. We'll tally up our money. We'll know what things are coming along. Because, that gives individual committee members an opportunity to vote on the projects as they're presented. And anybody is open to make a motion to fund a project. And again, Mayor, what do you have some
Well,
thoughts?
no, I just want to say that I think that using the list is a good idea because it gives us something to work from, and we can start right in the beginning with the Hoyoke stained glass windows. I make a motion that we fund the Hoyoke stained glass windows project.
Second.
Okay, second.
There you go.
Right, so we have a motion and a second to fund $80,000 of stained glass window restoration for Holyoke City Hall. All those in favor?
Wait, hold
Aye.
on. Of the motion or of having a conversation?
Motion.
Well,
Wait a second. You make a motion, there's a second of it, and then there's under discussion.
I'm sorry, I skipped the voting. If you want to, anybody have any, open to discussion?
So again, given kind of how tight it is, even without thinking about emergency assistance, things are really tight and we cannot fund everything this year. In fact, we can probably fund half. And that's if we give nothing to emergency assistance for housing. So one of the things that I was looking at in each of these was which projects would we fund completely and which would we fund partially. And one of the things that Bob Parent announced was that if we paid 30 grand, they could at least remove everything and store it safely so that no more damage could occur. So I feel like I would happily vote for $30,000, but I'm not sure, given how tight everything is, if I would give the full 80.
Okay.
I think that's a good point, and
Mhm.
my thing about it is very much based on
My feeling on that, my
I would
feeling on that is that
We can't, Mimi was talking, but we couldn't hear her. So
Go ahead.
anybody, if people could mute themselves so we can hear just the Mimi, the speaker.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mimi.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate Megan's point, and I agree that our funding is limited. And my suggestion or my happiness about funding the full amount in this case is based on my own private, obviously not discussed yet, sense that there are a number of things on our list that I wouldn't fund this cycle. I would just hold those funds in abeyance. And of course, since they're not under discussion, they're not directly relevant to the question of how much we put toward the stained glass. But I do agree that obviously we want to hold funds in reserve. We don't know what's going to happen.
Mayor, you had something you wanted to say?
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I feel the stained glass windows is more important than even rental assistance at this point in time. Those windows have to be done. That is one project where I want to see that project get done, and I want to see it done for the 80,000 that they requested. The sooner the better we get this done. This is a project that should have been done 5 years ago, never mind, or 10 years ago, never mind now. So that's why I want to give them whatever they need to get that project done. The other projects, well, if we don't want to fund the whole thing on the other projects, I'm fine with that. But this one I do.
The 80 grand would not pay for the entire project though. From his own presentation, we're like $350 to $500,000 left after the 80.
That's right. So that's why let's keep moving forward with this thing and get it done.
Marco?
Understand that.
Marco,
Thank
you had something you wanted to say?
Can't we, just because we decide to fund a project, does that in a certain amount, can't we like spread the money out and then come back and adjust? Like, do we have to fund and like, why don't we do a pass and see where we end and then see where we need to like tweak? Because it would make sense to me to try to fully fund some of the important projects or maybe some of the more affordable projects and then divvy out the rest in a equitable way or a meaningful way. Or I'm just saying we should throw our dice out and then kind of take roll of what we got. Just try to accommodate what we can with our budget. Otherwise, we're just going to be sitting here like wringing our hands and not knowing what to do. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, motion's been made already, so.
Oh, Marco, I hear you. I mean, in theory, what you're saying, I makes sense to me. But logistically, I think we'll be here for a long time going, because how many passes do we go through with each one of these saying yes, no? We're gonna have to take a vote for each committee to roll them through and cut, to cut and narrow it down. And, so that's, I'm just trying to find a straightforward way, that doesn't involve multiple rounds of discussion of the pros and cons of each project and what level of funding. It's not perfect, but I don't, I would. Here we are. We have a motion and a second for a funding. We're open for discussion. Meg made a point that she would be willing to support a less amount. I saw some other heads shaking, yes or no, but we're going to have a vote on this motion. And if it doesn't pass, then maybe someone's going to make a motion to fund for something less than this. And the other way seems to me to be complicated, time consuming, and I'm not sure we get a lot of benefit out of it, but that's just my opinion. And, other people feel differently about how we want to approach this.
Mr. Chairman, you want to call for a vote on
well, unless there's further discussion about this, this motion. Anybody else have any comments on the stained glass window?
I just want to say that I've always liked that Robert Parent has really gone forward and accessed other funding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think projects like that are important because they know how to play off CPA funds. And so I think that originally they were asking for 160 this year and they brought it back to 80. I think that's doable.
Okay.
I think the total amount that they for the project is 160,000. But they're asking for 80. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any comments on the motion to fund $80,000 for the stained glass windows?
I know this is big picture, so maybe that's not the direction we're going, but like I've been tallying stuff against each other to try to figure out how much I think we can fund. And if I think we're putting a certain amount towards housing, if we say we're putting $200,000 towards housing, whatever that means, if it's rental assistance versus one of the projects, then if we assume we're not going to have more than 550 in collections, that means that we have 350 to spend in total. So that means that we could fund all of, almost all of the historic applicants minus the armory. And we would be able to then fund the Topfort housing basketball court and not any parks. Like that's what we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm just putting that out there that like, I'm trying to balance it against like how it all speaks to each other.
Right.
Because I want a balance of things and a balance of stakeholders that we're honoring and addressing.
Okay. Any other conversation or discussion on this?
We don't have to fund all the other projects, even though they've applied to us. We don't have to give, some of them, we can just say no outright to their project. And you can't, so if we can do that, then there's no need to balance anything. I mean, we either want to do a project and, support it fully, or we don't want to do it. And then that's what's going to happen. Some of these projects are not going to get done. They're not going to get any money because we don't have the money to fund all of them fully. So some of them are going to get a no answer. There's no balancing there.
Okay. Anything else? All right, let's vote. So all in favor for funding of $80,000 for the stained glass windows? Aye.
Aye.
Hey folks, can everyone put up their moniker, please, of the thumbs up so that I can actually catch who is voting or not? Otherwise, it's going to be hard.
I'm sorry.
You know how to put under reactions, you put up the thumb if you're voting yes, so that I can see, is it unanimous? Is it one abstaining? Is it?
Where's the thumb?
If you
To-
go
to the
down
right.
under
More.
where it says reactions and then press thumbs up.
Oh, okay.
Quick
I
Down
reaction.
on-
don't see the word. I don't see the word reaction.
Do you see where it says participants
Just-
and then record and then reactions?
Just scroll, just move your mouse there, it'll come up.
Okay, participants 10. Then it says record.
Click
No,
manage
The
reactions.
one next to it.
And the
You
next
just go
one,
like this.
but
Or
it
you
does,
can just hold this up for a
Yeah,
while so that
Just
I
have
can
him hold his
see it.
finger up. Yeah. That's just hold his thumb on. That's it.
All right, so is that unanimous? Rosemary, I didn't see how you voted.
I did raise my hand.
Okay. Mimi, how did you vote?
I voted thumbs up and it actually showed up and then it
Oh,
went away
yay.
again.
There it is. Okay,
wrong.
thank you.
Wait, are you pointing down, Izzy, or up? It looks down.
Down.
Okay.
Down.
Okay. I didn't know those.
All right, so,
Okay.
So what was the vote, Meg?
So hold on, the total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us voting. And I guess it was 7 out of 8.
all right. Anybody else have a motion? I'll make a motion to fund the Lady Liberty study.
Second,
Um,
second.
Open for discussion. I just want to say, that I think that it's an important vote, especially in light of what's going on up at the Soldiers' Home, for us to make a small statement that that's reprehensible. And maybe I shouldn't say that. That not everybody who's voting feels the same way that I do about it, but I just think it's a small action that we can take, that I can take to vote on that, which is why I made the motion to fund. Anybody else? Or second, any other discussion?
Just as I recall, and Mike, correct me if I've got this wrong, the 25,000 is actually just the upper range. It might come in lower than that. Am I correct?
I would have to think it would be. I selected 25,000 as the highest possible cost.
Yeah.
We're not building a statue, or we're not rebuilding it. We're not building it. We're cleaning it. So I'd be hard pressed to think it would be greater than 25,000. I would be hard pressed to come up with anybody that would charge for basically relighting and cleaning the statue, the study to do it, not the work, but just to be the guiding engineer to say this is how it will get done. I'd be hard pressed to say it's harder than 25,000.
Yeah, that was my recollection. So probably, even though this is a vote to authorize the 25,000, some or all of that will come back to the committee in the end because it won't cost 25,000. I mean, that's not a guarantee, but it's a strong possibility.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just wish the project was the project. I just wish it had gone out to bid and that we had an actual, here's the work that's going to be done. And that the study had been rolled into the work itself. I don't feel comfortable voting for it at this point.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have to say I agree with Meg. I wish that we had gotten some quotes on this ahead of time, just to give us a roundabout as to where it would have played out, and then what they might have thought was the big scope.
Yep.
So I would add that this effort here is going to prepare us for the next round, when we have a report, and then it tells us what we need to do, or how to restore the statue. If we don't do this step, we're not going to get to the second.
No, I agree with that.
Yes, correct.
I was just hoping that we might have had a couple quotes just to give us a better idea, rather than just throwing out 25,000.
Agreed.
We're not throwing it out. We're not throwing it out.
Well,
just
in
don't
a
like
year that
feeling
you
like
don't
I
have a
don't
lot
know.
of money.
Yeah, it sounds to me like a lot of money, and it's hard to.
But Michael, are you gonna, excuse me, I didn't mean to.
No,
overtalk.
it's fine, Marco. Please go.
Michael, are you gonna solicit 3 quotes, or at least one? Are we gonna be able to compare a couple of quotes from people who might, be able to produce this report?
The city purchasing agent, it's her job, because this is city property. It's a city statute. It's her job to solicit bids.
So it's going to be bid through the 30A process, where services are solicited by the city. So we'll be able to look at 3 quotes, and then we can decide not to do it, or we can decide which of the 3 we think is most favorable.
This is the purchasing agent of the city of Holyoke. It's her job, upon getting a budget of $25,000, to solicit bids to clean and relight the statue. That's the city of Holyoke. We're not the city of Holyoke. It's a city of Holyoke property. And for us to evaluate something that the purchasing agent has ultimately the final say on,
yeah, but
which person ought to do it?
Hello.
That's her bailiwick.
Will we not have access to those quotes? I mean,
sure,
I know they have to select the most favorable. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily the least expensive.
Yeah, the most responsive, reasonable.
Maybe that's the right.
It's like when you hire an architect or an engineer, it's not the lowest price. It's the most reputable, the scope of work, the staffing, and so on and so forth.
I'm just pointing out that there are more steps in this process, and it seems like there would be more opportunity for us to speak up. If we don't do anything, this is not moving anywhere.
No, if we get a budget figure, it goes to the purchasing agent. Since this is a city property and a city statute, it's up to her as the agent for the city to select which one. Now, you can call her and go visit her and tell her all your concerns and so on and so forth. And yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out. But it's ultimately, she's the agent she's the purchasing agent for the city. We're not, she is.
So is she on board with this? I can only hope.
Why would she not be?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
Why
is this a project she wants to take on and do?
It's not for her to, Rose, it's not for her to decide.
Okay.
This committee has funded the money, put it with the city treasurer or wherever we keep our budgeted amounts. And we're instructing her to get 3 bids or follow whatever the state and local.
So we're asking for 3 bids.
Yeah, or whatever it may be.
Right, or 2.
It's like hiring an engineer or an architect.
And then she'll come back. And then she'll come back to us, and we'll move the project forward.
Sure. Yeah, okay. And she'll recommend this guy, that guy, or this guy, and the rationale for it. Right. That's her job.
So it's
a city property. It's not our property.
No, I know, but there's a lot of stuff that isn't our property. But it's nice to have quotes in advance just for an idea. But that's okay. It's kind of taking it from a different place than I would take it, but I think that moving the project forward does get somebody to go out and get some quotes, and I think that's a good thing.
Anybody else have any comments? All right, so we have a motion and a second to fund.
A second, I just wanted to say that's the way the city works. It always puts the cart before the horse.
It's the nature of the beast.
That's
there
right.
You go. So we'll just follow suit and hope it works.
So let's call for a vote. All those in favor of funding $25,000 study of the Lady Liberty statue, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
You got him? You count him?
Okay.
7 to 8, or 7 out of 8.
All right. Thank you.
Wasn't it 4 out of 8?
No.
I read
4 out of 7.
You want to
So
vote?
do folks just hold their thumbs up again to be clear? So I know that if I'm right or wrong.
And Mimi was a thumbs up. I saw her, so
Yes, 7 out of 8.
7 out of 8.
Oh, okay.
I voted no.
Anybody have any other motions on funding projects they want to make?
Well, I like Wisteria Hearst.
I do
think
too.
I'll
that's an
second
important-
that. I'll second that.
Any
Yes, sir.
discussion?
Well, I know that they came last year, but they didn't qualify. I thought they were, they
No,
seemed
no,
like
they
a
withdrew.
very deserving project fund, especially considering that having electrical issues could lead to fires, and it would be a humongous loss to somehow lose that building because of an electrical problem.
Not even the safety of it too. What they were saying, somebody just get next to it and they get electrocuted.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe that's a true treasure of the city of Holyoke, and it should be protected.
Yeah, I think this is the easiest application we have.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? All right.
No, we're in favor of
Who
it.
seconded that one?
I think I did.
Thank you.
So let's call for a vote. All in favor of funding the Wisteria Hearst for $104,000?
Okay, 8 out of 8.
8 out of 8.
So that's for 104,500.
Yep.
Correct.
All right.
Do we know how much we have left in the historic category for, if we divide it up into like the 3 categories?
Well,
You
We
mean
have
if we did it
60.
in a third, a third, a third?
Yeah, just
It's 60,000 in each category, and then plus the whole reserve. That's
the reserve is what comes in, remember, it's required to fund up to 10%, but 65% of the money is discretionary. So
If we divided the total, if we assume we will have roughly 550, which is a very conservative estimate, if we divide that in thirds, just to give you that sense of it, it would be $183,000 per category.
And how much did we just vote for the historic?
109.
oh, you mean
No,
total?
No, way more than that. Hold on, give me a second.
I can add it up to.
Plus 80,000,
Close to 200.
plus 25,000. We just spent,
210.
yeah, $209,500
209.
in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Hey,
Doesn't take
that's how we
much.
shop.
yeah.
Does anybody else want to make a motion to fund one of the projects that are on our list?
Yeah, I'd like,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to fund the Holyoke merry-go-round restoration.
I'd second that.
Can, just for clarity, which amount?
How
The
much?
26,170 or 137,403?
They said that it would be $6,543 per horse was their request.
And there are 4 horses.
Right.
That if you funded all 4, I believe that's
26.
the 26,000.
26,170.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Can I say, could, I don't remember, I was there at the meeting, but did he mention if we could fund that in phases? Like if it's like now we can do some and then some more later, or he's just gonna come back
Yeah,
later?
they'll probably come back to us for more, but
The
They're
project
already
total for 21 horses is $137,000 roughly. They're asking for only roughly $26,000 right now as a phase, as they're trying to do all of the rest of the horses they currently need to restore.
Right, and they were doing it out of pocket before.
Yeah, through their group that does a lot of
Yeah, they
funding.
were saving, yeah. Okay.
Fundraising.
So it's part of a capital campaign that we'd be
Yeah.
moving money towards.
I guess
think that's another deserving project.
I'm with it.
Something
Any
that
other-
brings people downtown. That's important.
I love it.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the merry-go-round funding?
I like that they've been funding I like that they've been funding their own horses for so long and doing it themselves, so they deserve to be helped on that situation, I feel like, but
Good point.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Was it Felsetti who put this forward
Yes.
and seconded by Marco?
Yes, I think so, but he could speak for himself.
That's right, yeah.
Thank you.
Get himself off of mute, though.
Are you putting forward for the full amount or for?
I think the 26, right?
$26,170.
Mhm.
All right, so any other discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My screen up. Okay, that's 8 out of 8.
Any other motions to fund one of the projects on our list?
I would like to put a motion forward to pay the alternate amount of $81,456.40 for the Topert basketball court.
I second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for funding of the Topert basketball courts of $81,456. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not so sure HUD is going to agree to these, to the restraints of the Preservation Act. I'd be hard pressed to put, you're going to tell them how to modify one of their contracts. I don't have a warm and fuzzy feeling that they're going to go along with it. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Can you say more about that, Mike? What do you mean by that?
Well, the feds, when they make an agreement with you, unless you're the president of the United States, they don't change it.
Who's that?
Unless you bring it in front of a judge and you have a judge decide it. I'm not, and I even expressed this to Matt. I said, I doubt that HUD is going to suffer under any state mandated or local mandated mandates that they have to modify who uses it and who doesn't. I'd be hard pressed to think they're going to sign on to that.
Yeah, actually,
They usually don't.
Isn't it a public park already anyways?
No, it's a federal, yes, no, not by definition. It's
Well, it's not city owned, it's federal owned, yes, but the
Yeah,
public
exactly.
can go and play in it, like random
Exactly.
people. Can go
No, you're right, Izzy. You're right. But the reality is
play.
they
I grew
own
up there. That's my basketball court.
it's a federal project. It's under
Yeah.
federal rule. Now, unless the Congress in the United States modify their contracts, no, they're not going to sign on to anything.
Yeah, actually, Mike does make a good point, which I had raised after discussing this project with Stuart Saganor, that it's sort of unusual for the Holyoke Housing Authority to be putting forth a recreational space project because of the fact that they have ultimate control over what they do with that space. And so, you know, as we've already talked about, we have to have a restrictive covenant for recreational space like we're doing with the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club in order to ensure the public benefit. So it might be a little bit tricky figuring out how we would be able to do that with the Holyoke Housing Authority.
Could we just have a memorandum of understanding? I mean, I
Right.
went there I went to most of the sites and walked around because I just wanted to see it.
Oh, they
And
need it.
I mean, I went to the Topher basketball court area. I walked around, sat there for a while. Like, not like anyone said, you know, ma'am, what are you doing here?
Oh,
It's
it's a
not
public
that.
park. It's a public park.
It's a question of contracts. And you're not going to modify their federal contract. The feds will not honor an obligation by a governor or a local state legislature or anybody. It's a federal property.
But no
We couldn't-
local, I have a hard time believing any local person running our local, you know, Topher Housing Authority project would somehow try to say people couldn't play there.
It's, well, go ahead, but if you're in front of a judge, that's where it's going to end up. It's a federal property.
It's technically private property. If you're there and you're not a tenant, the police can ask you to leave because you don't live there. But they don't do that out of respect of just this community. They keep it community. But if the cops roll up and you're hanging out there and you don't live in separate apartments, they can ask you to leave. It's not the same as if you're in a public park, let's say Peanut Park that's in the flats or Crozier Field. The cops can't just randomly come and tell you to leave just because they feel like it or because you're loitering or whatnot.
They can do that at Teffer technically, but they don't. I understand where Mr. Falsetti's coming from, where he's saying that. The only thing I would say is we would never know if we don't try. And if they deny it, then we still got $81,000.
There you go.
Izzy,
That's the only thing I would say.
it's going to happen, Izzy.
No,
Well,
it's okay.
they
And
have
you
the
know what?
choice.
If it does, then we got $81,000 that we still have then, right?
That's right.
Right.
They have the choice of not signing off. And if they choose not to sign off on it, then the money comes back to us. But we can.
That's it. It goes back into the pot.
Go for
I
it.
agree with you, Mr. Falsetti, 110%. Because
We're not going to go to court with them, that's for sure. So it won't be in front of a judge. We won't contest it. Don't worry.
Well, the intermediate step is going to be in a contract, which they would have to sign that says
Right.
they're providing public access.
That's right.
Well, it's two things. There's the public access, and then the fact that they, it's unusual because they own that property, that not only could they just, not agree with the open access, they may not want to keep it a basketball court, or what, So
if they choose not to do it, then the money just comes back.
Well, you mean they choose not to do
Sign the contract.
a restriction of some kind,
Right.
Not just a contract, but a
The restriction.
for a set period of time for, like 25 years,
Right.
But but what I'm hearing is Mike Falsetti, who is on the board of the Holyoke Housing Authority,
Okay.
and a representative to this committee for an affordable housing category, telling us that the housing authority cannot enter into that agreement
Okay.
without the federal legislation being changed, and that's not likely to happen. So we could
So maybe we should
fund
look
and
somewhere else.
assume it's contingent upon them getting an agreement. The downside to that is, we're tying up funds that could be used in other ways, and we're tying them up for a project that the expert on this committee is telling us they will not be able to execute that agreement. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Mike, so go ahead. Am I misspeaking?
So that makes sense.
Yes, yes, Kip. I knowing HUD, they won't go along with it, period. But it's still going to happen. We're going to fund, the housing authority is going to do this. Now, it may not be this year or next year, but it is in the immediate horizon. That's going to get done with our money.
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to get done. It may take a year or two, but it's going to get done without contracts, without debates, and with our own funds.
When you say our money, you mean the Holyoke Housing Authority's money?
The Holyoke Housing Authority's money will take care of this.
With all due respect, I don't believe that, because I live there and they've been saying that for 30 years, but hey, it is what it is.
All right, any other discussion?
Well, that's an interesting point, Mike, because if that's something that they are supposed to do, then we have to be careful because of the supplanting law with CPA.
Yep.
That if there's already a stream that's dedicated to this work, we can't supplant it with CPA.
We'll call for a vote.
I would really like to see that conversation that just occurred in writing. I just feel like I heard a lot of people say things for the first time that I have not heard when we've talked about this project many times, and it makes me anxious. I'm not okay with what just happened.
Okay, well, they're going to call for a vote.
Well, let's table it.
On what? I was just told
Let's-
based on what could be hearsay that I
that's
would like this now to be tabled.
I make a motion,
can
we
we-
table it.
I'm very upset
On the
about what just
tabling.
happened. This is information that should have been shared a different way.
Well, this is
Yeah,
really
I think we should
first. Wait a
table
minute.
this.
Wait. This is the first time that the committee has deliberated the projects, right? We have not discussed the details. We have listened to presentations. We have asked questions. Now we're deliberating whether or not to fund. We're all getting a lot of new information today on this project. We have a motion and a second. We're discussing it. We're going to vote.
But you know, before you do, I want to make a motion to table it, and you have to take that up first.
Okay.
If someone seconds my
I
motion,
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this.
motion,
And then
Let's
can
table
we seek
the motion
clarification?
to fund.
yes.
Okay. So we're not voting to fund the project. We're voting to table the motion to fund the
Yes.
project. Okay.
Correct.
Any,
But can we,
go ahead, do more
can we get
discussion.
more information though? Can we request a clarification?
Right.
Because
That makes sense.
There's no discussion
in the
under
past,
tabling.
why encumber the funds?
When you table a motion, there's no discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table. All in favor of tabling the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, tabled.
Okay.
And
No,
Mike,
I
you voted,
against it.
I'm just, yes, I was clarifying that. Michael, you voted against it?
Correct,
Thank you.
You voted against tabling?
Yes.
correct.
Why? That's what you wanted. That's what,
No, it's not.
I mean, I know what you wanted, but that's okay.
I voted
It's still not
against,
gonna get the money, that's why.
I voted against tabling also. Just
Okay.
for the record,
Thank you.
All right.
okay?
So what was the final vote for the
Hey.
table?
6-2.
6 out of 8. Falsetti and Foley voted against tabling the motion.
All right,
So
Marco, you're up.
can we have some clarity though? Like, all right, I don't want to discuss it because we tabled it, but how is this going to move unless we clarify this issue, this impasse?
Well,
They're not
I
gonna get
think,
funded.
I think
We have a
Michael
letter from
Falsetti
HUD.
has to bring us more confirm, more information that is, not just what he's saying, but what the Hoyoke Housing Authority would have to say on it. I mean,
They applied for it.
I would suggest that we ask the Holyoke Housing Authority's council to weigh in on the legality of putting these restrictions on the property.
Yep.
And if they come back and say, look, the federal government will not allow us to make these changes to the use of the property, then that's the end of it because we won't be
Right.
able to do it.
Well,
And we can all kick ourselves for not grabbing the legal point earlier. And if they say, no, we don't think there's a problem, then we can reconsider the merits.
yes,
Well,
I agree.
that was one of the issues that influenced my vote. The other more important issue for me was that the housing authority is going to fund this thing on their own, and so
Yeah, and that also is a consideration.
I want to answer that question too.
Yes.
Well,
I don't know who's asking it. I'm not going to go ask that question because,
I'll ask.
okay, so at our next meeting, we can discuss this.
Okay.
Can we have the Hoyoke Housing Authority, somebody from the administration come in, talk to us
Yep.
about it?
Agreed. Kip, can we also end the meeting at this point? I just don't see a clear end in sight, and it's 8:20 and I have children to put to bed.
Well, let's see if we have any more motions for funding first for a minute or two. We may not have any more, which is going to end the meeting anyway.
But then we could also go like 30, 45 more minutes. And I know we're 20 minutes past like what I hope every time we're trying to end around 8, just around like respectfully owning that people have multiple hats they're wearing.
Yeah, I second that motion, Meg.
We spent too much time at the beginning of the
I'm
meeting,
done.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
We need to move more swiftly through some of these items.
Yeah, we should.
Because a more than 2-hour meeting is not really reasonable at night.
Look, nobody wants to move these meetings faster more than I do.
I do.
That's a good
We can move these things to a half hour, but
Hold on. I just want to say too, though, that last time we did this process, it took us 3 meetings.
that's true.
We took 3
Yeah.
meetings.
but we
We
also
never moved this fast.
Well, okay, but hang on for a second. We have these competing interests, right? We're trying to stick with a schedule and make our recommendations by the end of April to the city council. If we're going to fund projects in this fiscal year, then we're looking to make recommendations to the city council under.
Yeah.
Now, we've been waylaid because
Right.
we've been unable to meet. So, you know, we're trying to get at least two meetings worth of work done in one meeting. So
If I'd had that framing, then
let's-
maybe I would have planned differently. I just didn't understand that this was going to be a really late meeting.
Well,
Um,
I make a motion or suggestion, let's meet again next Wednesday.
Mhm.
We have nothing else to do, so
That
let's
works for
do
me.
it.
I'm happy to meet more times. Yeah, I just can't meet like really long stretches like this.
Okay, well, that's important information, and I agree. Let's just do this again next week and hope to take up everything that remains, which may be very fast because
Yes, if
we
that's
may
the
be
only
able to
thing.
hold off on funding anything
Well,
else.
so before we do that, can I just ask if anybody, you don't have to make the motion, but does anybody have another project that they were going to make a motion to fund while we're here?
No.
Nope.
I don't.
Well, yeah, Mr. Chairman.
And yes
Yeah.
is simple. Yes is a good, okay, good. All right. So if we want to suspend our deliberations on these projects at this point and reconvene in a week, I'll entertain a motion to, to adjourn and with a understanding we're going to reschedule for a meeting for a week from tonight at 6 o'clock again.
Mhm.
April 29th. Is everybody able to do that?
Yes,
Yes.
So we have a motion to adjourn
I make a motion to adjourn.
in a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody.